Hi, I'm Dr. Linda Mintle. Hey, thanks for listening to the Dr. Linda Mintle Show. Faith radio podcasts are only possible because of your support. Thanks for giving and for sharing with a friend.
Doing life together, reaching out with hope, encouraging one another, each step along the road. You and I can make everything a little better, doing life together.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Linda Mintle Show. I'm your host, Dr. Linda Mintle, the relationship doctor, and I'm here along with my co-host, the other Dr. Mintle. There he is, sitting across from me, my husband, Norm.
No anxiety.
That's right.
Perfectly at peace.
At this moment.
And calm.
That's right. And every weekend, Norm, we're here, we're doing life together, and we're so glad you joined us.
So you might have guessed by now why I said that, but we're in a 3-part series talking about Dr. Linda's new book, Hope and Healing for Anxiety. And we want to continue that conversation today on this episode. There's so much that you have written into this book, so many good tips and helps, so we just had to do one more. Is that okay?
That's right.
Okay.
We might do more because we've only hit like 3 of the chapters total out of the
there you
8.
go.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to do the impact of loneliness, social isolation, and how those I don't know what to call them. They're dynamics. There's something terrible that relate to our anxiety. But before we dive into that, could you talk to us a little bit about the difference between everyday anxious moments and anxiety disorders?
Yeah, because this comes up, right? People are like, wait, do I have an anxiety
Yeah,
disorder?
yeah.
And maybe it's just like what we would call sort of everyday anxious moments. So here's one. If we look at stress, how do we respond
Okay.
to stress? Well, we all sometimes feel anxious. I mean, you get a bill and you go, oh, I spent that much money.
Right.
You might have a moment of anxiety on that one, right? But that doesn't mean that you have an anxiety disorder. You would have to have persistent worry or distress over finances or bills or something, even without the trigger.
So the key word there is persistent,
Yes.
chronic. It just goes on and on and on. You
Yeah.
can't get away from it. Okay, what about social situations?
Well, I mean, every once in a while, we all do something that we feel a little bit awkward and embarrassed
Sure.
about, right?
Or meeting new people?
Yeah. So we might have a moment of, but, we force ourselves to do it. The difference is with someone who has more of a social anxiety problem would be that they're avoiding social situations entirely due to the fear of judgment or worrying that they're going to be somehow humiliated. That's the basis behind a lot of social anxiety.
And that sounds a little bit, is pathological too big a word to say?
I mean, it becomes a disorder then. It becomes a problem. So we're talking about moving from everyday sort of things that happen to us into something that's more of a problem.
Okay.
Okay. When it comes to performing, now, I don't think I ever did a piano recital without feeling anxious before
I
the
bet.
recital.
Sure.
But it didn't debilitate me, Norm. I didn't have panic attacks before I started, and I didn't, worry that I was going to go in there and something would happen. So that's different. If you have that, that's more of an anxiety problem.
So you speak a lot publicly. You go to conferences.
Always get
do you
nervous.
get nervous?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's rare that I don't. I get less nervous when I do TV and stuff because I've done it so much. But there's always a little bit of nerves in there, and that's normal.
Sure.
That's kind of good. It kind of keeps you, sharp.
Yeah,
Right. And then there's, some basic fears. Do you remember that time when our nephew Patrick put a plastic snake in our garage on top of the what was that? The
it
trash
was
bin.
a bin,
It's
yeah,
one of those
right.
recycle bins,
Yeah,
right?
something you would reach into.
I put my hand on there, saw that thing, and just freaked out.
You
I
did.
mean, I was so afraid because I hate snakes.
This was a sight to see.
Yes, and I was
Dr. Linda lost it.
I did. But, that was a moment. Now,
Right.
I'm not like constantly fearful. Like I won't not go out into a forest because there might be a snake, or I'm not going to feel like I'm going to panic, or, I can't do something because of that fear. So that's when it becomes more of an anxiety disorder.
So that's kind of the phobias, like agoraphobia and that sort of
Yes.
thing. That's when it becomes a disordered anxiety.
Yeah, you fear an object, you fear a situation, you fear a place or some type of situation
Okay.
that you're going into. And then the last one I might want to talk about is, when you have an emotional response to something. So sometimes you have a lot of sadness, or you have trouble sleeping, or something stressful happens in your life and you just feel somewhat anxious.
Right.
But that's different than someone who has that repetitively and has intrusive nightmares or flashbacks, like we see anxiety and post-traumatic
Right,
stress and
right,
trauma a lot of times together. That disrupts their daily life. That's a little bit different.
When I have those occasional ones, that it makes me feel really badly for the people who have that all the time.
Yeah. It gives you some compassion for, if I had to deal with this all the time. And there's a lot of causes for why people have that we've talked about in other shows. And I definitely have a whole bunch of roots of anxiety in the book to say, why am I experiencing this? But that's a little bit of a difference between everyday anxiety versus disordered anxiety.
Good. That's very helpful. Thank you. So now let's get into one of your chapters that gets at a common root for anxiety. You wrote that loneliness can actually fuel anxiety. Why is that?
Well, the really short version of this, Norm, is that we're wired for connection. We feel connected to others when we have that type of relationship or intimacy with someone else. Our brain, our body just functions better. But when we isolate, we get trapped in our own thoughts. That often heightens our worry, our fear. We feel more overwhelmed, and that can bring on a lot of anxiety.
I never thought about that, but I guess loneliness doesn't just feel bad. It actually shapes how we might experience stress.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing this all by yourself,
Right.
your mind plays tricks on you and can sometimes go to a negative place. So there's a fascinating study. It's an old study, but I love it. And I use this study when I speak quite a bit and show people. So in this study, what they did is they asked people to estimate the steepness of a hill. So they showed them pictures of a hill. Or I
Okay.
don't remember if they took them out to a hill or showed pictures. I think it was pictures. One group looked at the pictures alone, and another group stood next to a friend.
Okay.
And guess what? Those with a friend judged the hill to be less steep. Just having somebody next to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's it. Just having someone
Yep.
next to you changed your perception.
Yes. That the hill was less steep.
Wow.
Which we're going to relate that to challenges in our life, right? So here's another version of that same study. This time they were asked to simply imagine a supportive friend while looking at the hill.
Okay.
And even then, the hill looked less daunting. So that tells us something really profound. That support, whether it's real or imagined, changes the way we perceive obstacles in our life.
That has to be related to our experience, right? Things went better when we had a friend with us.
Well, yes, but our brain is wired that way. And we're going to talk about that's the way God designed us. That's why we're so designed to have a relationship with him and other people. But the brain is wired that way.
Good. Well, I love that metaphor because there are plenty of steep hills in life.
That's
for
right.
real.
That's right. So the way God built us, created us.
Right.
I mean, think about it at the very beginning. He said, it's not good for man to be alone.
Oh, wow. In
And then-
Genesis, right?
Yeah. And then Jesus lived in a close community. I mean, did he really need all those people? Well, he was fully man.
Sure, that's true.
So he had people around him. And the early church was built around connections. So spiritually and emotionally, we are made to thrive in a community.
I like that. Okay, let's get real practical because you and I and our listeners all like to take action. Come on. Walk us through one of the exercises from your workbook.
Okay, so listeners, if you're not driving or multitasking right now,
Yeah, be safe.
grab a piece of paper. If you can't right now, just imagine it in your head. So if you're driving, don't grab paper, okay?
Okay.
Step 1 is to list 3 to 5 people who offer you support.
Okay.
These might be family, friends, coworkers, some mentor. Ask yourself, who can I talk to about worries? Who encourages me when I feel anxious? Who makes me feel understood? Now go ahead and jot down those names. Or think about who you would identify. Which person? Which
Yeah.
people come to mind when you're doing this?
Wow. I like that because now what you're doing is forcing us to stop and think about and notice things that we might not realize are as supportive as we actually have.
Yeah. Well, so step 2 would be, so now you've thought about the people. So who are those people in your life? Now, you have to evaluate those relationships. How often do you connect with those people? Do they really listen to you? We were having this conversation the other night, Norm, weren't we? About friends and who listens, who doesn't. Do you feel safe opening up to them? And then rate each one of those people on a scale of 1 to 10, just for those factors, not as full people, but just as that.
And I don't know that the frequency matters as much as the depth of the relationship. I
Right.
don't know. It seems to me. So it's not just the people around us. It's the quality of the friendship we have with them.
Yeah. And then the third step would be to consider, where do you want to strengthen a connection? Or is it time to build a new one? Maybe by joining a group, by volunteering, or reconnecting with someone you've lost touch with.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny because I remember hearing something that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
I know, I've heard that saying too. And our that means what they're saying is our closest friendships actually shape us. So if your circle is negative, critical,
Right.
it's toxic,
Right.
it's going to increase your anxiety. On the other hand, if you surround yourself with uplifting, encouraging people, that can reduce your anxiety and build resilience.
So this is a good question for our listeners too. Who are your closest friends that are adding peace to your life? Or which ones are adding pressure to your life? Do we complain about work and church all the time, or do we encourage and lift each other up?
Exactly. And sometimes it takes courage to reevaluate who you're spending time with, doesn't it?
Yeah. Help us reflect on that.
Well, write down the names of your 5 closest friends or the people you spend the most time with. And then next to each name, just put a check mark if they're mostly positive or a minus if they're mostly negative. Now, step back and look. Do you have more positives or negative influences in your life? If the majority are negative, it might be time to set some boundaries or look for some new friendships that are healthier.
Wow, seeing it all written down on paper in black and white makes it clear.
It does. Because you know what? Emotions are contagious, Norm. If you're surrounding yourself with negativity, you're going to feel more anxious. I mean, can't we see that in the
Sure,
culture?
absolutely.
We see that
All
all
the
the
time.
time.
All the time.
In the culture. But positive energy is contagious too. So that would be really great for our culture to recognize. If you would start reporting on positive things and see the good in people, that would change the energy in the culture. So choose wisely who you spend time with.
Good. Well, we're going to be back and think more on these good things right after this quick break.
Whenever I start to sense anxiety, it feels like an old friend of mine that I don't like. Certainly when that happens, I'm asking God to come into this with me with prayer and also pick up the phone or talk to somebody. It breaks the grip.
When I am faced with unexpected situations, that is one of the big anxiety triggers.
Anxiety? Anxiety's the boogeyman. It jumps out and grabs me when I'm least expecting it. But also, like the boogeyman, it's a creation of my mind, and therefore subject to the word of God.
When I'm feeling anxious, this is what I do. I pray and I go for a walk.
Anxiety does not have to control your life because God has provided the perfect prescription. Learn how to lean on Him for your peace, your strength, and your hope with Dr. Linda Mintel's new book, Hope and Healing for Anxiety, available wherever you buy your books.
Raising Healthy Kids in an Unhealthy World. Available on Dr. Linda's website, drlindamintel.com, and available online where books are sold.
Welcome back to the Dr. Linda Mintel Show. Just a quick reminder that you can follow her on her social media platforms, X and Instagram. You can find her at the @ at Dr. Linda Mintel, one word, or on Facebook at Dr. Linda Mintel, author and speaker. Social media is such a great way to keep up with Dr. Linda, her speaking, her writing, her blogs, and you can find all about her new book on anxiety that we're talking about today. Just click the link, and there it is. You've got all the information you could possibly need. Or just go anywhere you buy your books online and get a copy.
You know, Norm, sometimes we should have one jing just keep rolling the tape. tape. Do they call it tape in radio?
No,
What do
but-
we call it in radio? Rolling the computer? What do we do? Punching the. What do they do in radio? Punch the board? What is she doing over there? She's moving a bunch of dials around. That's what I see her doing
Yeah,
all the
right.
time.
She's busy.
Because we have good conversations. So we were talking before the break about how much negativity is just talked about 24/7 in our culture. I mean, if you turn on any news cycle, that's all you get.
It's so much because the people who produce news and the people who own the news, the networks, have decided that that's what gets ratings. And in our world of media, the more eyeballs, we call it, the more people who watch or listen, you can sell more advertising and you make more money. So they want to be sensational. They write crazy headlines to make you scroll through a magazine article or an essay or something like that online. And it's all about attracting your attention. So what attracts attention? The sensational. The blood. In the old days, they used to call lawyers ambulance chasers who would go after a car wreck and try and get you. And then there were stories about these crazy people. And it's snowballed in our lifetime to where now it feels like 99% of everything is bad. So much so that the other night we saw a good story and you were like amazed.
I know. We were watching the news and they did something inspirational. And then I went, wow, why don't they have stories like that once in a while? Because I really do think it's playing on the psyche of the American people.
I think so.
I mean, everybody's just angry and mad and hurts people. There are all these videos of people just hurting other
Right.
people senselessly. Nobody's stopping it. Everybody just using their phone. I'm just getting really tired of it.
Sure.
I'd be like, I'm always saying, like, why do they have to show us that? Why do we have to focus on that? Because we're focusing our brains on all this negativity, which is just going to make everybody feel more anxious.
Right.
Why do we have record rates of anxiety?
Right.
Well, look at what we're looking at, violence and media and all these different negative stories. And people are just treating each other rude and meanly.
Well, every time we look for a new movie to watch, everything we see is vengeance.
I know.
Well, he was avenging the kidnapping of his daughter. He was avenging the kidnapping of his wife.
Yeah.
It was on
and like
and on
25
and on.
people are murdered, and
Right.
it's all in the name of getting back at people. So we've really lost the goodness
Right.
of people. I'm not saying that people are born good. I'm just saying
No.
that the more we would reinforce the goodness of people, we'd focus on people. And we're saying that's what we have to do in our relationships is we have to find the goodness in other people or forget it. We're never
Right.
going to have good relationships with anybody if we're always constantly blaming and complaining.
And when we talk about social media, for example, there's a theory that says that social media were designed to more closely connect us to the world, bring us closer together. And I don't know too many people who agree with that. In fact, I think most of us would agree that we're even more disconnected. We're more isolated.
Yeah, and I mean, the studies do show that the more time we spend scrolling, the more likely we are to feel anxious or down. I mean, that has been proven. There was a study, I think, at the University of Michigan back in 2013. It's a long time ago that showed people that spent a lot of time on Facebook were more anxious and more depressed. So we know that this is a big part of this. And the big reason for that is social comparison. We see everyone's highlight reel, we compare it to our real life, and then we end up just feeling inadequate.
Right.
And of course, what does that do? That prompts a lot of anxious feelings.
Because we see a lot of very pretty people on social media. Beautiful hair, beautiful makeup, beautiful clothing. And that's the comparison thing you're talking
Yeah.
about. And a lot of that is artificially fabricated.
Yeah. And, so if you already struggle with anxiety and then you're spending a lot of time in social media, you're basically putting fuel on the fire.
Right.
Is what you're doing. So that's why you've got to set some healthy boundaries for yourself. I mean, this is a very practical step that people really need to take seriously, that if your mood is anxious and irritable, do not spend hours scrolling through social media.
In fact, you're isolated and it's making it worse.
Yeah,
Because we're
here-
talking about loneliness.
Yeah, so here's what I would do. I would say, as you're thinking about your social media use, I would
Okay.
say, how often do I compare myself to others online?
How many times a day?
Or how often do I do that? Now,
Right.
I try not to do that. It's hard not to, but I'm like, whatever. They have free, they have chefs, personal chefs, and they have lots of money. They're doing lots of plastic surgery. I try not to compare, but it's hard not to do
Sure.
that because you still see the images.
Sure.
And then this would be really good to think about. What kinds of posts trigger anxiety or insecurity for you? So which ones of those
Right.
really get you going with the anxiety?
So you really have to think through and be
what-
introspective about
which
that.
ones am I watching that are doing that? And then the next time that you scroll, pause and just notice when those comparisons start or when you're starting to feel anxious. And part of what you have to say to yourself is this is curated. It's not the whole story.
Right.
But that's, again, our mind can trick ourselves into this. And then here's a challenging one that you could try. Try a validation detox.
Oh, what?
A validation detox. I just made that up.
Okay.
So, but for 1 week, I think it's in the book actually. For 1 week, limit how often you check likes or comments. So just limit yourself.
Okay.
Instead, each night, I mean, don't look at all that. I get basically what I'm saying
Right.
is just don't go look at how many likes, how many comments did I get. Instead, each night, write down 3 things you appreciate about yourself, something that you've accomplished, or a quality that you value.
As opposed to what others or strangers
Yes.
are saying that they like about you or they validate you. Ah, now I get it.
And I would put that in the context of what God says is important.
Yes.
And what
Yes.
He values.
Who does he say that I
Yeah.
am?
Yeah.
I like that. Good
Yeah.
reset button.
Yeah. And, some people even take a short break from social media.
Fast.
Entirely.
Right, take
Yeah,
a
a lot
fast.
of people do that during Lent season, I know. And then see how you feel when you step away. Because what we hear from our friends who have done that, I've never actually done that. Have you done that? I've been gone. We've been on trips for
Yeah.
travel,
Right,
but
right.
haven't done that. But everybody I talk to go, I feel calmer, I feel less anxious, and I feel more present.
Seems like a good common sense way to step away from something that you now know makes you feel anxious. If you didn't know it before, you know it now. We've told you. So step away. I guess maybe if we're first aware that social media contributes to this problem, then we can pay attention to how it affects us and then do something about it.
I think the issue here is you got to have something else
Right. Oh,
to do.
right.
Because people do it when they're bored and they're anxious. I mean, we cannot just sit anymore without looking at our phones.
Right.
I mean, people are standing in lines. They have their phone
Right.
there. So it's like we have to break that habit of being more aware. I remember when we would travel as a kid, when none of us had phones, right? We'd be in the car,
Right.
like the 5 of us in the car. And my middle brother, Denny, was so enamored with everything we'd see on these trips. And he'd be like, look at the tree as we were going by it, or wow, there's a sunset.
cactus.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? That was really good. We were
Right.
focusing on the world in front of us instead of a world in front of our phones. And I think that really helped our mood
That
when we
makes
were
a lot
growing
of
up.
sense. Okay, let me try to summarize a little bit. We're getting closer to the end
Okay.
here. Loneliness fuels anxiety, but strong, healthy relationships help protect us against anxiety. Did I get that
Yeah. So again, it just goes back to relationships, right? You got to have them.
right?
You've got to have the right ones. You've got to build them.
Right.
You've got to sustain them. I mean, this is what our show is always all about.
Right.
And anxiety is just one more thing related to the lack of relationships or related to unhealthy relationships.
I think what you've said here makes so much sense to me is that we need to be aware and take inventory
Right.
of our life
Right.
and our relationships or the lack of them. And then we get support.
Right. Well, support is a thing in of itself. You need to have that. And that you also can access the strength of other people, right? And the support systems. You can reevaluate all of these things that we're talking about. Who do I spend time with? Who do I need to set boundaries on? But what is my overall support? Now we know that we have support in the Lord.
Right.
But I think this is one of the reasons why there's community in the church. And this is why we can face these hills, these steep hills,
Right.
with other people. With God's design for community and the right support, those hills are really going to feel less overwhelming to us.
We all know, and I can tell you right now, if things are really, really bad and I need to talk to someone, I know exactly who to speed dial.
That's true. That's true. So again, it's one of the changes you can make to lessen anxiety or get rid of it altogether. When people come together in real and authentic communities, anxiety subsides. This is why God knew how much we needed the church. It can be a place to build a supportive community. Norm, you and I have had a church community all our adult lives, and they have helped us face so many challenges in our life. We couldn't have done it without them. We couldn't do it without their prayers. And we want the same for everybody else who's listening to us. So, you want to lessen anxiety? You need to start building community and finding healthy people to do life with. Well, that's all the time we have today. Many thanks to my co-host Norm Mental, who makes the show a conversation, to our technical producer Wan Jing Pu, and our editor Katie Sims Wilson. Hey, from all of us here at Faith Radio, we'll talk to you again next weekend. In the meantime, remember, we're doing life together, and it's better when you don't have to do it alone.
Doing life together.
Hey, thanks for listening to this conversation from the Dr. Linda Mintle Show. These conversations are available because of your support. Become a supporter now at myfaithradio.com. Please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes, and share it with friends so we can live life to the fullest, walk confidently, and find healing and hope.
John O'Leary was 9 years old when this happened.
One moment, I was this normal little Midwest kid. And then in the next, I found myself in a hospital bed with burns on 100% of my body.
He was in the hospital for 5 painful months, but made a commitment that would change everything.
I would never be defined by those wounds. I would never be defined by those scars.
Hear John's incredible story on the latest episode of the Wow God Stories podcast. His passion will set your soul on fire and make you say,
Wow, God.
Wow, God.
Wow, God.
Wow God Stories, wherever you get your podcasts and at myfaithpodcasts.com.